Good evening, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, let's get right into the news here because there's quite to cover on this Tuesday. No, you're not looking at the slums of a third world nation. This is an actual city inside of the United States of America, El Paso, Texas. Since Biden took office, he has intentionally opened the floodgates at the southern border, and a record number of migrants crossing their border illegally has responded to that tacit invitation. The stats on the border are abysmal to say the least, according to data from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. President Trump oversaw the lowest illegal border crossings in nearly 50 years in 2017. There were 415,517 instances of illegal border crossing. That was the lowest since 1971. Since Biden assumed office in just 2 years, there have been an estimated 4 million illegal border crossings, which is again, according to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, an all-time high. So obviously he's been avoiding the southern border, or he's sent Kamala there. Which of course we all remember that disastrous trip back in the summer 2021 when Cackles Camalo made her own trip to El Paso only to be greeted by tons of protesters excoriating her for waiting so long to visit the border and the Biden administration's total and complete incompetence there. Harrisdale signs such as Trump 1 and F Biden, and how many little girls need to be raped before this administration declares the border crisis a crisis, and as the vice president could hear their screams, well, now Biden is seeing basically the same thing. Although with apparently more attention to pulling off a Stalin-esque propaganda photoshoot that became particularly apparent when it was reported that Democrat-run El Paso was deliberately clearing out large migrant encampments from their downtown streets ahead of Biden's visit. Since last week, police were reportedly moving hundreds of migrants to less visible areas of the city. All his violent crime has spiked in El Paso since the onslaught of migrants descended upon it, but they did everything they could again to turn this visit into a Stalin-esque visit. Like to Ukraine, you know, the one's breadbasket of the world that was turned into a desert by Stalin and his collective farm project that caused millions of people to starve to death as a result. Biden was greeted by Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who handed Biden a scathing letter denouncing his administration's disastrous handling of the southern border. Abbott wrote, quote, "Your visit to our southern border with Mexico today is $20 billion too little and 2 years too late. Moreover, your visit avoids the sites where mass illegal immigration occurs and sidesteps the thousands of angry Texas property owners whose lives have been destroyed by your border policies. Even the city you visit has been sanitized, the migrant camps which had overrun downtown El Paso, because your administration wants to shield you from the chaos that Texans experience on a daily basis. This chaos is the direct result of your failure to enforce the immigration laws that Congress enacted. Under President Trump, the federal government achieved historically low levels of illegal immigration under your watch. By contrast, America is suffering the worst illegal immigration in the history of our country. Your open border policies have emboldened the cartels who grow wealthy by trafficking deadly fentanyl and even human beings. Texans are paying an especially high price for your failure, sometimes with their very lives, as local leaders from your own party will tell you if given the chance all of this is happening because you have violated your constitutional obligation to defend the states against invasion through faithful execution of federal laws. Halfway through your presidency, though, I can finally welcome you to the border. When you finish the photo ops in a carefully stage-managed version of El Paso, you have a job to do." That was brilliant. That was absolutely brilliant. And then he lists out 6 or 7 points of action that Biden needs to take immediately. I don't think any of us are holding our breaths all night, of course, but actually, didn't believe what CNN had to say about things were so obviously cringe-worthy for Biden at the border. Even CNN admitted they couldn't hide it. You're gonna absolutely love this. The very nature of Biden's visit to the border was so cringe that even CNN admitted in their headline that the visit was, quote, tightly controlled. That's right. In other words, it was scripted. It was choreographed. It was, in effect, a simulated visit. It wasn't real, as Governor Abbott pointed out in his letter to him, but that's just where it started. CNN actually, they actually criticize Biden for not meeting with any actual migrants, even though this trip centered on visiting a migrant respite center. Again, this is from the CNN article, quote, Biden spent several hours in El Paso in his first visit to the southern border as president following growing outcry and criticism that he had not yet seen the crisis created by the record number of migrants trekking to the border firsthand. Again, keep in mind this is CNN saying this, but that brief visit appeared largely focused on enforcement issues and speaking with border enforcement personnel. Reporters on the ground did not see any migrants at the respite center during the president's visit there, nor along the motorcade routes throughout the afternoon. Asked to explain the thinking behind having Biden visit this specific center and ultimately not meeting or interacting with any migrants there, a senior administration official told CNN, "Well, there just weren't any at the center when we arrived, all completely coincidental. They haven't had any today. Right? Completely coincidental if you're I want a coin get dank. It's funny how many coincidences follow the Democrats around, so strange." Even CNN recognized that this crisis at the border is ultimately going to sink the Democrats. They can only flail a lot around so long. A recent poll published by NPR found that a majority respondents believe that what we're seeing at the southern border is indeed nothing less than an invasion, which of course it is to enter a nation by permission as immigration to enter it without permission illegally is an invasion. Isn't that what we're telling Putin? And polls consistently show that upwards of 60 to 70% of the American population remain very concerned about how inept Biden has been in handling the southern border. So obviously keep an eye on how things develop here, but if Biden thought he was going to be a swagging any concerns about his disastrous immigration policy by this tightly controlled visit, he can think again, but then again, if things get worse, he can always send Kamala. And then this is some big news. You know there's different rules in different places and these rules and standards should be respected. You know you don't want to be like Brittany Griner going through Russian customs with a significant amount of illegal substances because in Russia they don't play no games with that stuff. You're gonna get yourself in quite the situation. Let's just say that. Well, here's where I'm getting at. You could get away with pretty much whatever you want living in California, in Portland, Oregon. Want to rob a store? Go right on ahead. Want to do intravenous drugs on the street open in front of children? Go right ahead. Want to assault random pedestrians? It seems as though the politicians, the prosecutors and police departments give you the green light. They're telling you to go right ahead. Well, in Texas, well, that's in California and other similar locations in Texas. They don't play those same games in Texas. Yeah. F around, you're probably going to find out you could be a petty criminal seeing videos of people in California and New York and Oregon doing what they want, victimizing the public at will without any consequences. You might be thinking to yourself, well, if they can do it, I can certainly do it. Well, maybe if you lived in California, but in Texas, that's so much. I got something to show you guys. Alright folks, I'm not sure if you guys have seen this story yet. If you simply go on Twitter and type robbery, Taqueria and Houston, or if you this is what happens when you tried to rob a taqueria in Houston, you'll find the video, and of course viewer discretion is advised, but essentially you have a masked robber who walks into the taqueria armed, robbing patrons one by one as he walks from table to table waving around a weapon until of course he is met by this individual in the grayish-blue shirt on the left. This man ends up being the hero, and let's just say he terminates the threat without hesitation, and to the extent where he essentially drops the entire mag into the individual, even continuing as the criminal, the assailant, the threat to seemingly neutralized. He essentially put the whole thing in him. And here's where the controversy starts. And here is the conversation that I want to have. I am seeing so many tweets, so many Twitter experts calling for the man in the grayish-blue shirt to be arrested and charged. We're now learning from ABC News that the customer who shot the robber at the Houston Taqueria is wanted for questioning, and we're seeing all these galaxy brains all over Twitter like Wilt Chamberlain. This guy's an interesting fellow to say the least, claiming that this incident was not lawful self-defense. And there are so many copious tweets. I'm sorry, but this is not something to be proud of. No good guy with a gun should be shooting someone from behind and unloading unless there was a true threat against someone's life. It's a situation where it could have ended well, but the guy with the gun was way too eager. Excuse me, there was no true threat to anybody's life. You have a masked assailant committing an armed robbery waving a firearm in people's faces. I mean, this is unbelievable. Now we're learning now that allegedly the assailant's weapon was apparently an airsoft weapon, if I'm not mistaken, but if you ask me, that doesn't change anything. It's so many people are outraged over this incident. A lot of armchair quarterback lawyers, he should have done this, he should have done that. His actions were fine for the first X amount of shots. But the last 3, the last 2, the last one, those were illegal. All of it I find just so stupid. Here's another argument that I keep seeing: he's going to take an L here. Unfortunately, he would have a rough time saying his life was in immediate danger when the guy was already leaving, then the extra shot when there was no longer a threat. People keep saying that the customer acted after the criminal was leaving just because he was walking towards the door. He was walking towards the door pointing his weapon, but it makes no sense because if you pay attention, he was walking towards the door. But really, he was walking towards the customer in the back left corner aiming a weapon at him. Not only was his life in immediate danger, but that other individual's life was in immediate danger. And then the whole issue of the threat was supposedly already neutralized. How do you know when enough is enough? Deadly force is deadly force, and it was clearly justified here, and also deadly force means terminate the threat. I'm seeing so many people with these kinds of takes. They're all getting ratioed, thank the Lord. But it's crazy to me that this is even a popular reaction. I'm not going to hold back in this discussion. I am so tired of the excessive sympathy granted to criminals. We're going to pretend as if the hero in the situation is the bad guy. No, that's not the way that this works. And the hero in this case is pumped with adrenaline. He's just doing the right thing in the moment in an incredibly tense environment and situation, and the expectation from armchair quarterback lawyers here that he should have been able to really analyze the situation, and when the threat was terminated in a stop at the perfect moment is ridiculous. It's unrealistic. Now obviously we're in Texas, a hero here. I don't think he's going to be charged, and even if he is charged, I don't think a jury of his peers in the great state of Texas would ever find him guilty. So he's obviously going to be fine, but I just find it crazy that people are actually calling for this guy to be charged with murder. The most common claims that I'm seeing is that he fired at the assailant from behind, after the assailant pointed a firearm at his head and then proceeded to point his firearm at the casual patron in the back left of the camera shot. That's not justified, and I don't know what is over. The assailant wasn't actually using a real weapon. It was an airsoft weapon. How the hell are you supposed to know that in the moment? They look identical? For me? It's very simple. Yeah, for a round you find out you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. If you walk into a store looking like friggin' Antifa, brandishing a weapon and pointing it at people's heads as you walk around taking their money automatically. For me, everything gets thrown out the window. Whatever happens to you after that, in terms of consequences, it's totally justified. And the idea that this law-abiding citizen did anything wrong just doesn't sit well with me. There was a clear threat. There was one threat, one criminal, and he terminated that threat with precision and with confidence, and whether it was excessive or not is irrelevant. The threat was terminated. If you're going to walk into a public place or a private business and commit this kind of heinous crime, very simply, in my opinion, it's done for you. I will never have sympathy for criminals. I'm done with it. I am absolutely friggin' done with it, and all the wannabe legal experts on Twitter. Well, actually, if you pause on frame 1045, you can see at this precise moment, the individual was no longer a threat. And the airsoft Glock exited his hand therefore, and now I'm at no take a friggin' hike. The guy is a hero, simple. He shouldn't be charged. He shouldn't be arrested with anything. He should be given an award, because it's people like this who are protecting innocent civilians from these lawless gangsters who are running around terrorizing communities. Now the only thing that this heroic customer did wrong, I'll tell you, it's leaving the scene afterwards, the exact way this event transpired. He terminated the threat, took the assailant's weapon away from him, placed it on a table, took all of the money that the assailant took from patrons and gave the money back to all of those individuals. And then here's where I think he messed up. He went home. He should have called the police, and he should have stayed there, answer their questions, and given a statement. Was that wrong? Probably. But again, when you have that kind of adrenaline rushing through your veins, it's even possible that this individual has a criminal record and maybe wasn't supposed to be carrying a firearm. We don't know what's happening. We don't know why he made that decision. But at the end of the day, again, regardless of any of that, I don't think a Texas jury is going to find him unanimously guilty. I think none of those factors matter. He did the right thing. He protected the community from an out-of-control thug, and for me, it ends right there. You don't play these games in Texas. You don't get to wave a firearm at innocent casual individuals eating dinner and just get away with it, period. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Open Source News. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you